come and peep in the past.
Other videos available in this series. St Helens Peeps in the Past, Our Heritage. St Helens Peeps in the Past, Knickknacks and Nostalgia. St Helens Millennium, An Eventful Century. Witness Millennium, Peeps in the Past. Warrington Peeps in the Past, Our Heritage. Warrington Peeps in the Past, 1940 to 60. Warrington Peeps in the Past, 1960 to 80. Warrington Peeps in the Past, A Changing Town. These videos take a nostalgic look back at scenes and events of a bygone era. A trip down memory lane inspired by local movie makers of yesteryear, who with their hand-cranked and clockwork cameras helped to immortalize life as it used to be. The Saints Go Marching On, the official history video of St Helens Rugby League Football Club. This dropkick down memory lane provides an historical record of one of Rugby League's most successful clubs, the Saints, tracing its history from 1873 to 1997 in a feature film-length 2.5-hour video. Rugby's coming home. This unique video follows the fans' trail to Wembley 1996 and 1997 to see their heroes make history. The homecomings and exclusive player interviews released for the first time. See who's in the bath at Wembley. D-Day, St Helens Remembers. See and hear the chilling stories told by the men who fought for freedom. See the D-Day landings and listen to the heartbreak caused by the evil Nazi regime. Alex Murphy celebrates 40 years of his signing as a professional. A host of celebrities gather at Haydock Park Racecourse for a star-studded evening to celebrate his illustrious, sometimes turbulent career. To order any of these videos, telephone Northwest Video 01744 29976 or visit our website at www.northwestvideo.co.uk. Crossing over from the 19th century into the 20th saw Britain arguing over when to celebrate the incoming new year. Was the boundary at the end of 1899 or 1900? Most agreed that 1900 was the last year of the old century, and so the country held their centennial celebrations on the eve of 1901. Some quietly at home, waiting for the clock to strike midnight, others attending churches and chapels, keeping the tradition of the watch night service. The passing of Queen Victoria on January the 22nd, 1901, aged 81, and in the 64th year of her reign, seemed to signal the end of the Victorian age. People looked at the present situation with some kind of hope and pride. St Helens had by now become a bustling industrial town with a population of 84,310. Coal, glass, steel and chemicals were well-established, profitable industries. Beecham's pill-making factory in Westfield Street had a bustling business and a loyal workforce. Socially, too, the area was an enjoyable place to live. A public free library was opened in 1887 in the new town hall, containing 5,000 volumes. A public baths was opened in Boundary Road in 1880. Schools were sufficiently numerous across the borough to provide a basic grounding in the 3 R's. Most of the churches in the area made a great effort to open schools. The St Helens Corporation had bought areas of land to turn into places of recreation. Parks. A piece of land in Thatto Heath was bought for £600 from the Crown in 1884. Queen's Park and Parr Recreation Grounds, Gaskell Park, were also amongst the corporation's acquisitions. Taylor Park was a gift to the town presented by Samuel Taylor, a textile magnate, in 1893. Cowley House and its surrounding 31 acres was bought for £11,000, later opening to the public as Victoria Park in 1886 as part of the Jubilee celebrations. The menfolk could visit any number of local hostelries to partake in drinking the locally brewed Greenall's ale. One of Rugby League's greatest football clubs, the Saints, had established their home in Knowsley Road. The Sankey Navigation, the St Helens Canal, which was the first canal in the country, had been extended to Widnes to service the chemical revolution there. St Helens had by now an adequate rail network with stations at Shaw Street, St Helens Junction, as well as Central Station. Celebrations took place in College Street in May 1900, as fighting in South Africa eased. British commander Horatio Kitchener changed tactic to bring the Boer people down, which became known as the concentration camp. The Boer War finally ended in June 1902. St Helens, like other towns and cities across Britain after the death of Queen Victoria, felt that a suitable memorial should be set up. Colonel William Windle Pilkington unveiled the huge cast image of the late Queen Victoria in April 1905. During the early part of the century, the town had two major fire disasters. The parish church was completely destroyed by fire on December 2, 1916. 3 years previously, the town hall caught fire during redecoration in preparation for King George V and his wife Queen Mary's visit. Although the town hall sustained considerable damage, the building survived. The royal visitors, during their tour of northern industrial towns in 1913, stopped off at Pilkington Brothers. The glassmakers, previously known as Greenall and Pilkingtons, have been part of St Helens since 1826. Peter Greenall, whose family fortunes lay in the ale brewing industry, had supported the company in its adversity. On the 1st of February 1842, he agreed to sell his 3/11 share to his brother-in-law for £7,000, to be paid in 28 quarterly payments of £250. By 1849, the Greenall and Pilkington name had been replaced by Pilkington Brothers. Sheet glass was by now in great demand, and Pilkingtons were in a position to supply all their customers, whereas the glass giants of the northeast, who continued to rest faith in crown glass, were unable to do so. A new phase had opened for the St Helens firm. With the horrors of the First World War still fresh in people's minds, the 1920s were a period of great social change and political instability. Many men returning from the war found they had no job to come back to, as unemployment reached record levels. There were few improvements in the area of health. The Spanish flu, which had Britain in its grip in the early part of the century, managed to kill more people than the Great War. Diseases like TB were rife, and in 1921, only 1 in 100 people in St Helens managed to reach retirement age. To redress the balance of this, St Helens launched its Health Week in 1923, giving information and advice on how to stay healthy. Growing disenchantment led to civil unrest, culminating in the general strike of 1926 and the miners' strike, which protested against a planned decrease in wages. Coal was St Helens' main industry, with over a quarter of its male population working in its 12 collieries. The town was hard hit, and many men and women were forced to collect sticks or dig coal out of open-cast mines themselves in order to get fuel. St Helens War Memorial was unveiled in 1927 by Elizabeth Davis, who lost 5 sons to the war. With the young men returning from France wanting to enjoy themselves, there was a boom in recreation. The arrival of cinemas revolutionized entertainment, and hundreds flocked to St Helens cinemas, such as the Picturedrome, Griffin Theatre, the Pavilion at Jackson Street, also known as the Par Dog, the Oxford in Duke Street, Thatto Heath Empire, Sutton Bug, the Electroceum at Haydock, and the Palladium at Boundary Road. With the introduction of talkies in 1927, Two of the town's biggest cinemas opened within days of each other: the Capitol at Duke Street and the Rivoli at Corporation Street. Then later, the new luxury Savoy in Bridge Street. The depression of the early 30s left the nation's people jobless and hungry as Britain's shipbuilding industry slumped. The coal, steel and textiles industries followed, and the unemployment level passed 2 million. Over a third of the country's working class lived in poverty. Malnutrition was a primary cause of sickness. The Education Act of 1926 provided free or low-cost school milk and meals. By 1939, 10% of all school children were taking advantage of this. Sundays were very much a family day, a day for attending church and Sunday school. But change was afoot. In 1931, a bill was passed allowing cinemas the right to open on Sundays. 22 million people visit the cinema each week. Not wishing to see their ratings fall, St. Thomas's Church in Westfield Street began showing films to hit back at local cinemas. Walking days, processions and carnivals have by now become part of tradition. By 1934, driving tests had been made compulsory. King George V had performed the ceremony of opening the Mersey Tunnel, and the following year, cat's eyes in the middle of the road were introduced. The crowning of King George VI and his wife Elizabeth didn't pass without official recognition in St. Helens. Municipal buildings and neighbouring establishments around Victoria Square got all dressed up for the occasion on May 12, 1937. The outbreak of war came 2 years later. For months, posters had been posted around the district in factories and offices in an attempt to step up recruitment of air raid precaution wardens. Conscription was in place from April 1939, which means that men over the age of 20 years will be called up to national service. It's a quarter of a century since the War of 1914 left its indelible mark on history. Training is given on how to wear a gas mask and prepare themselves and others in the event of an attack. In the continuing build-up, ARP recruitment and training in St. Helens is now at the height of its operations in the defence of the homeland. On Thursday, the 24th of August, 1939, Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain addressed a crowded House of Commons. In his historic and grave speech, he warned of the world crisis and that Britain was faced with the imminent peril of war. By order of Herr Hitler, German forces marched on Poland, bombing the capital Warsaw. An immediate meeting of the British cabinet resulted in the King signing orders for full mobilization of Britain's sea, land and air forces. Local authorities have been instructed to put air raid warnings into full operation. The sounding of factory hooters and sirens is prohibited, except to give air raid warnings. On September 3, 1939, Neville Chamberlain told the nation that, for the second time in many people's lives, the country was at war with Germany. A final British note presented to Berlin at 9 a.m. gave the German government 2 hours to give an understanding that they would withdraw their troops from Poland. In a message that Sunday evening, the King called upon his people at home and across the seas to stand calm, firm and united. In a mass exodus, people, mainly children, were evacuated from industrial black spots to find shelter in Blackpool. The weeks turned into months, and the months turned into years. 44 million Allied military and civilians gave their lives. America sustained less than 500,000 losses, but they suffered the biggest cost, $341 billion. As a result of the immense human and economic losses, Britain, France, Germany and Japan ceased to be great powers in the traditional military sense, leaving only two: the United States and the Soviet Union. As the 40s turned into the 50s, rationing ended, and as the decade progressed, prosperity kicked in. People found themselves with more money in their pockets to spend. Cinema queues decreased as television sets became a popular piece of furniture in the home. You could sit back and enjoy a nice cup of tea without any tea leaves, as Tetley have just introduced the tea bag. People were affording more and more luxuries. Sunday outings in the family car gradually began to take over from the traditional Sunday churchgoer. Traffic congestion was becoming a problem. Many people would head for the gateway to Cheshire, the Widnes Transporter Bridge, to visit places such as Delamere Forest and Frodsham. The bridge, which opened on Monday the 29th of May 1905, had by now outlived its usefulness. The 2.5-minute crossing on the suspended car caused long queues, and a second river crossing was planned, a road bridge. Beatlemania was sweeping the country and eventually the world. The Cavern in Matthew Street, Liverpool, is set to become the most famed club in history. As the swinging 60s swung into St Helens, successful glassmakers Pilkingtons were set to swing into new premises. Their old head office at Grove Street will soon be vacated when their new high-rise office block is completed in 1963. Just behind this policeman. St Helens Technical College is under construction, and by 1961 the new Runcorn-Widnes Road Bridge is complete. The opening ceremony was performed by Her Royal Highness Princess Alexandra on Friday, July the 21st, 1961. It's the first road link between Cheshire and Lancashire since the Mersey Tunnel was opened by her grandfather King George V on July the 18th, 1934, almost 27 years ago to the day. The following day, at 7 minutes past 11, the gates of the transporter clanged shut for the last time. For the 300 passengers, it was a most nostalgic moment as they watched the Widnes shore draw near. Soon, it will be demolished, and whatever the frustrations it may have created for motorists towards the end of its life, to children, at any rate, it was one of life's greatest treats. Pilkington's Gala Day is an annual event on a grand scale. Floats and lorry loads of children bring together a carnival atmosphere as the parade winds its way through the town to Ruskin Drive, the firm's sports and recreation facility. In 1968, the giant carnival parade headed out of town in the opposite direction for centenary celebrations to mark the 100th anniversary of St Helens becoming a borough. The event signalled the beginning of the St Helens Show, which became a free annual 3-day event, and soon afterwards the end of Pilkington's Gala Days. February 1971 saw the introduction of decimalisation. A shilling became 5p. Tanners, threepenny bits and half-crowns all disappeared. Chirpy Chirpy Cheep Cheep rose up the charts, and Orange Man space hoppers bounced into family fun. By the early 1970s, smoking chimneys are to become a thing of the past, as smoke controls are phased in. Private homes, as well as council houses, are having to change from ordinary coal fires to smokeless fuel, gas or electric. 4/10 of the cost of converting are to be paid for by the government, 3/10 by the council, and 3/10 by the household. And for those who want to go up market, Manweb have on offer central heating from only 49 guineas. Going smokeless was completed in 1974. In 1972, an Act of Parliament was passed which would change boundaries in many towns. The townsfolk of St Helens were seriously affected, as the area became a metropolitan borough in 1974. This meant that St Helens went out of Lancashire and into Merseyside. St Helens may no longer be part of Lancashire with its entry into Merseyside, but it can't stop the townsfolk from being Lancastrians. For all its cosmopolitan background, St Helens is very much a Lancashire town, with a liking for cricket, rugby league, fish and chips, hot pot, and all the things characteristic of the county. The 70s reorganisation of boundaries also brought reorder of the town's market areas, as the old market gave way to the new. Bohemian Rhapsody topped the charts, Concorde had taken to the skies, and Prime Minister Harold Wilson resigned in April 1976. James Callaghan became his successor. 100 process workers lost their jobs at British Sidac, Sutton. Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip visited the town in 1977 during the year of her Silver Jubilee. Pilkington's rapid expansion has gained the company recognition in almost every country in the world. The company, inventors of float glass in 1959, had strengthened their position as world leaders. Their UK 5 plant began production on the 5th of April 1981. Economic measures had so seriously affected the Providence Hospital that it closed in 1983, despite the valiant fight for its survival. Soon after, to be followed by another St Helens institution. Helena House, the old co-op in Baldwin Street, seemed to disappear without so much as a word of protest. Even the council showed no interest in the town's most visited and loved department store. Inner city rioting belonged to the 80s. Places like Toxteth in Liverpool and areas of Manchester became no-go areas. This glass fountain belonged to Church Square in 1984. Hardshaw Street was pedestrianised, and the following year the building of a bus station had begun in Bickerstaff Street. The popular fishing spot, the Hotties, became the chosen site for the new Safeway store, which opened in July 1989. The first St Helens Hotel since the late 80s, when the Fleece Hotel in Church Street was closed, opened 3.5 years later as the Chalon Court. The Sankey Valley Canal Restoration Society, SCARS, have been faithfully committed to the eventual restoration of the canal, with future plans for the waterway to be made navigable once again. More than 60 years of neglect have resulted in areas of the canal almost becoming lost under rubbish. By the early 90s, SCARS have made much progress, restoring locks, walls, and clearing out weeds and rubbish. Sir John Johnson, chairman of the Countryside Commission and president of the Canal Society, is here to look at the work SCARS have been doing since they began back in 1985. The most attractive section of the canal is Bradley Lock and Swing Bridge near the Mucky Mountains. The area is overlooked by spoil heaps from the former vitriol works, which were in the area before the Sankey Sugar Works in 1855. The carriage of bagged raw sugar up the Sankey from Liverpool was the canal's only traffic for most of this century. The bulk shipping of sugar saw an end to traffic in 1959 and the canal in 1963. This part of the canal, which has been drained to allow decontamination work to be carried out, is in total contrast to this part, 1/4 mile away, which has been faithfully restored. SCARS hope to have achieved their ambitions by the year 2004, but it will cost £40 million to complete the project. The whole town is behind Beecham's and Pilkington's workers on the 25th of May 1994. Battle buses, which will carry hundreds of workers and supporters, wait in readiness to roll to London. The fleet of vehicles line almost the complete length of Birchley Street. Fury greeted the earlier jobs announcements in February '94, which came as another crashing blow to St Helens industry. Coupled with huge job cuts at glass giant Pilkington, almost 500 Beecham staff are to lose their jobs in the shake-up ordered by the company. Organised rallies from both firms marched through the town weeks earlier, holding demonstrations for the right to work.
We find ourselves in a position where we're working for a multinational company, making £1.2 billion profit, and yet they're telling us that they're in a position where he can't invest in this town. Our aim is to try to get Smithkline Beecham to invest in the jobs in this town and keep the factory open here at St Helens.
Smithkline Beecham is giving its workers the bitter pill which will end the 150-year association with the town. They're taking their petition to Westminster.
Britain can't work without jobs. There couldn't be a better slogan, could there? And when we look at the
production at the Smithkline Beecham factory finally ground to a halt in December '94. The listed building is to be handed over to St Helens College.
Oh yeah! Oh yeah!
St Helens stepped back into the Victorian age last week to celebrate the launch of the new video of St Helens history entitled Peeps in the Past. Northwest Video, local video production company who dreamed up the idea, are working flat out as demand for copies of the video outstripped supplies. Mayor and Mayoress of St Helens, Councillor John and Margaret Fletcher, were presented with a copy of the video by company boss Ron Lee's children, Andrew and Jennifer.
Accept this gift for the town from Northwest Video.
Thank you very much.
The magic of Mecca is leaving the bingo enthusiasts of St Helens spellbound. Thursday, March the 2nd, 1995, saw the town go bingo crazy as the new £3 million Mecca Bingo Club in Kirkland Street opened its doors for the first time. General Manager Kevin Dean said he'd never seen anything like it. People had queued for hours just to get in on the opening night. The bingo craze started here in St Helens in October 1965, when 2,000 fans created a full house at the Rivoli on its opening night 2 weeks after it had closed as a cinema. The new state-of-the-art Mecca Club has capacity for almost 2,000 people, including space for the disabled. It has a staff of nearly 80, most of whom are local. Irish comedian Jimmy Cricket topped the bill.
Chairman, I went over to the bar for a drink. I said, a glass of orange. The girl said, still orange? I said, yes, I haven't changed my mind.
And a good night was had by all. Temperatures soared and attendance figures rose to an all-time high of 600,000, making the 27th annual St Helens show a resounding success. The 3-day Sherdley Park Spectacular seemed to be a showpiece of everything a successful town has to offer. The busiest day was Sunday, when 350,000 people passed through the showground. Bars and traders sold out of drinks and ice creams. St John's Ambulance dealt with a multitude of wasp stings and heat-related ailments. The sizzling temperatures also affected the local constabulary, as a number were treated for burns and 4 were sent home with sunstroke. The Women's Royal Voluntary Service helped unite a number of lost children with their parents during the 3 days. Police made 14 arrests for breach of the peace, theft, disorderly conduct and drugs offences. However, Inspector Tony Twist was full of praise for the visitors. This year's show had something to interest every member of the family, and a bonus is the scorching sunshine which prevailed for the 3 days. Bumper attendances to Rainhill's Heritage Week at St Anne's Church has caused the event to be extended from 1 week to 2. Among the visitors to the church on 7th of October 1995 is actress Jean Alexander, better known for her role in Coronation Street as Hilda Ogden. It's half a century since victory in Europe, and the borough is celebrating in style. The VE Day celebrations mark the 50th anniversary of the end of the bitterest struggle in history. Everyone wants to forget the evils and horror brought about by the vile Nazi dictatorship. All here wanted to celebrate the relief that the war was finally over. The Blue Lion in Newton-le-Willows had made their preparations well in advance. The street was closed for the occasion, and the sunshine added to the brilliance of the event. I wonder if those are trophies. Oh, suits you, sir. Across the town in Bishop Road, the Nalgo Club were also holding
Have a look up
celebrations.
in the sky for the Messerschmitts. The Luftwaffe are here again. Send our Spitfires out. There's not many planes today, not many planes. I think we can have the all clear. All clear.
Parkside Colliery lost its battle for survival despite the long, vigorous campaign to save pit workers' jobs in Newton-le-Willows. The giant towers, barely 30 years old, were felled to the ground in just seconds, in a pall of smoke and dust. The town's showpiece £2 million bus station will be open for business in November 1995, the culmination of a partnership between Mersey Travel and St Helens Council. The previous bus station, built on Bickerstaff Street, was proving inadequate, not just for Merseybus, but for the many other operatives that came into the town. The properties along Corporation Street, between the Swan Public House and the Silver Star Restaurant, had come into the ownership of the Borough Council by 1984 as plans for the new bus station were drawn up. Demolition of the century-old properties soon began without causing hardly any problems to road users or shoppers. The site was soon cleared to leave developers to get on with the job of constructing the 9-bay, state-of-the-art bus station. The new-look Bickerstaff Street station will have closed-circuit TV and lighting for safety and security, tactile paving for visually impaired travellers, and a public address system giving up-to-date information. Saints players Joey Hayes and Steve Prescott have called into the £1 million drive-through McDonald's to try the restaurant's fast food. The restaurant opened on Monday the 27th of November 1995 on the Linkway. The previous owner of the site was Jay Pickavants. It's taken just 5 weeks from the start of the building to serving the first burger. The fastest building of a McDonald's fast food restaurant took just 11 days. The St Helens drive-through, employing 60 full and part-time staff, is the 616th in the UK.
Absolutely brilliant.
They might be selling plenty of beef burgers here, but in St Helens schools, beef is strictly off the menu. The council banned beef from all school menus in December '95 because of mad cow disease. A spokesman for the council said they wanted to minimise even the smallest risk that BSE may pose to the health of the population of St Helens. Beef controls were introduced by the government in 1989 after scientific evidence linked the human form of BSE with exposure to infected beef. The massive contribution that the mining community made to the development of St Helens is being permanently and publicly recognised. Speculation has been brought to an end amongst those who are puzzled at the huge stones dumped on the landings roundabout opposite the YMCA 12 months ago. The lifelike figures, a pick-wielding miner, a pit-brow lass and a young pit lad set against a pillar of coal, are the work of Lancashire sculptor Tom Dagnall, who heard his work praised at the unveiling ceremony on Sunday the 11th of February 1995. The project has cost £55,000 and has been paid for with money raised over a 5-year period by fundraising, donations and Eurocash. The monument was hailed as a masterpiece of vision and a work of genius. 30 new jobs have been created by family discount retailers Wilkinson. The flagship store in Cottam Street opened its doors to customers on March the 1st. The company has been in St Helens for the past 15 years in Church Street. The branch will eventually transfer operations along with the 100 staff to the new store. A £12 million pipeline project got underway in the same month in a bid to beat the continuing drought. It's all part of North West Water's £75 million programme of measures to maintain essential supplies through this summer. The 12-kilometre-long aqueduct project will be laid between Ashton-in-Makerfield and Prescott in a record 12 weeks. To minimise environmental impact and disturbance to local people, the pipeline is being laid entirely across agricultural land. Work is underway at the site of the Peasley View homes. The joint scheme between St Helens Council and Merseyside Improved Homes will cost a staggering £4.5 million. The estate, built in the late 1960s, was vacated less than 2 years ago to undergo the massive revamp. Across the road, St Joseph's Church, which had served the community for many years, is about to be razed to the ground to make way for more houses. The new Peasley View properties will have a high energy efficiency rating with insulation and double glazed units to keep fuel bills to a minimum. Full central heating has also been added, together with noise insulation. Fears of an IRA bomb threat have led to extra security measures being introduced to the town centre. Armed police will be patrolling the streets in the run-up to the general election. The strategy is aimed at heightening public awareness of terrorism threats nationally and at the same time reinforcing Merseyside Police Force's commitment to public safety and reassurance by their high public presence. Security continued to be stepped up around the town when Big Brother arrived in September 1996. 11 surveillance cameras have been installed in strategic spots to provide full coverage of the town centre, as Phase 1 of a joint project by local police and the council. Phase 2 of the scheme, funded by the single regeneration budget, means more cameras will be installed further out of town. The money for cameras to be introduced in Newton-le-Willows is already in place. There was no armed guard for visitor Kevin Kennedy, better known as Curly Watts from Coronation Street, when he came to give out prizes during the Dash for Trash on Environment Day. After signing autographs, the actor went on a walkabout of the shops in the arcade, posing briefly at Playhouse Shop to promote the Coronation Street video.
Never to have seen on television.
Harry de Maxim entertained the mums and dads, and I think the children also enjoyed the show. The afternoon concluded with the presentation of prizes. The winner of the school section received £150 for their school. Winners of the adult section received a Dash for Trash trophy and chocolates. All team members received a Dash for Trash t-shirt. Queen Victoria was still on the throne when they were built. Royalty has walked on them, and the saints came marching home on them. Now, after 120 years, St Helens Town Hall steps are being replaced. Time has taken its toll on the foundations, and new ones are needed. The work is expected to take several weeks. St Helens College is celebrating 100 years of providing quality education and training. One of the high spots of the centenary celebrations included a visit from famous steeplejack Fred Dibner, who brought along his traction engine. It was a great milestone in the history of St Helens when first Mayor of St Helens, David Gamble, honoured his promise to provide a home of technical education for the rising generation by presenting them with a municipal institute, which housed both a library and a technical institute. The gift to the town cost £25,000.
And I'm not chimneys in Bolton, I can see St Helens. It's one of the few places where they still have chimneys with smoke.
The week's events closed on Friday with fundraising at the Saints Ground on Knowsley Road and a grand firework and laser spectacular. Many of the week's events were attended by the Mayor and Mayoress, Councillor Alex Worth and his wife Esther. Enthusiastic crowds braved the elements to cheer on the contestants in Church Square Shopping Centre at the 7th annual Pancake Race. Radio City's hilarious double act, Wally Scott and Billy Butler, kept the entertainment going and the crowd laughing.
And the grand trophy to the captain of the Barclays 2 team. Who's the captain? NatWest. Sorry, the NatWest team. Sorry, NatWest 2. You showed NatWest 1, didn't you? Hey. There are many.
From pancakes to polling.
Can I ask how you voted?
Yeah, with a cross.
St Helens, traditionally a Labour town, is turning out in force for the 1997 general election. The country has had 18 years of Conservative control, many of these under the Iron Lady Margaret Thatcher. Hoping to be elected is leader of the opposition, Tony Blair. Mr. Blair came to St Helens 3 years earlier to visit Windle Labour Club. After the customary press photo call, the party entered the foyer to the club, and at that moment the proceedings came to a halt. The reason for the hold-up wasn't apparent at first, but when they were told to keep the noise down, it soon became clear.
You can't interrupt the bingo. Don't you want a bloody brain? Looks like you couldn't interrupt the bingo.
After some questions and answers with the audience, John Evans MP gave all present some reassurance.
I know that you've got another game of bingo to play, and I'm very conscious of that. I assure
It was a good night at the polls as Labour cruised home to victory and Tony Blair became Prime Minister. This year's Par Carnival on the 28th of June 1997 is off to a wet start. Dressed in a colourful array of fancy dress, the crowd assembled at Bold Miners Club before setting off on their second annual walk around the Par neighbourhood. The event has been organised by Paul Griffiths of Derbyshire Hill Family Centre and Phil Burgess from St Helens Groundwork Trust. Many of the activities originally planned to take place out of doors had to continue inside as the weather worsened. Spokesman Paul said that the occasion was a resounding success, adding that the local community gave its full support to the two organisations who'd brought the event together. And, despite the wet weather, it certainly hasn't dampened the enthusiasm of those taking part. The Union Jack is flying at half-mast on the roof of the St Helens Town Hall after the announcement that shocked the world on August the 31st, 1997. Diana, Princess of Wales, is dead. The number of floral tributes around Queen Victoria's statue in Corporation Street is growing. Oceans of flowers sprang from concrete floors, and a river of humanity flowed down the pavements of the Mall in London to sign their names in the Book of Condolences. Council officials in St Helens have extended an invitation to members of the public to sign a Book of Condolences in the Town Hall or to lay floral tributes outside. It took up to 12 hours to reach the front of the queue at St James's Palace to sign the book, but no one complained about the wait. St Helens will grind to a halt on Saturday as the borough joins the whole country in paying tribute to Diana. Bosses at Morrison's and Quicksave have revealed that they will only be opening at 2 p.m, and many other supermarket chains are expected to follow suit. Most town centre stores will also remain closed until after the funeral has taken place. Britain is a nation united as never before in sorrow. Princess Anne is in St Helens on Wednesday the 4th of March 1998 to officially open the Ravenhead foyer. The Princess arrived at 1 p.m. to be greeted by the Mayor and Mayoress, Councillor and Mrs John Mellor. Council Leader Mike Doyle and Chief Executive Carol Hudson were also introduced to the Princess Royal, and then Foyer Manager Jane Mackenzie took the Princess on a tour of the 32-bedroom purpose-built facility on Sherdley Road, which will provide accommodation, education and job training for young people between 16 and 30. The scheme has cost £1.5 million to build. A handful of neighbours and the children from the nursery across the road came out to wave goodbye to the hard-working royal. The family of Lady Pilkington have extended an invitation to the people of St Helens to visit Windle Hall Gardens on Sunday the 6th of September 1998, an event that's become a tradition. It's almost a month since St Helens bade farewell to Lady Mavis Pilkington at a moving funeral service at the United Reformed Church in town. The opening of the gardens was arranged before Lady Pilkington's death as part of the National Garden Scheme. This may be the last time they're open to the public. Teas and strawberry cream tarts are being served, while the crowds are entertained by St Helens Concert Band, providing musical entertainment. The atmosphere isn't quite the same as past years. Probably the absence of Lady Mavis is a sad reminder that she's no longer here. This time last year, Lady P, the central figure at the event, was drawing the raffle, enjoying what she'd always loved, being with the people and helping with charity work. she will long be remembered for giving time, money and support to everyone in need. The Duchess of Gloucester is in town on Wednesday the 15th of September 1998 to officially open the new St Mary's Market, which is part of the £5.5 million redevelopment of the town centre. The old market closed on the 23rd of April last year. The stall holders were accommodated on the 2 lowest floors of the Shallon Way car park during the construction of the new St Mary's Market area. The town's market dates back to 1780, when there was an open site at the junction of Market Street and Church Street, where women would stand with baskets of farm produce for sale. The Duchess, after a brief presentation on the market's history and the creation of the new centre, toured the market, stopping to chat to stall owners and local shoppers. The plaque unveiling was a little tricky as the cord jammed. The Duchess had to move the covering curtains by hand. There was an impromptu presentation as 2.5-year-old Megan Yates from Clockface stepped forward to hand over a posy of silk flowers. It's hoped the new market, with its glass facade and outdoor market fronting onto Shallon Way, will provide a vibrant setting full of space without losing all the hustle and bustle of a traditional market. December 1998 brought Christmas misery to 400 United Glassworkers. The UG at Peasley Cross plans to close their St Helens operation in March next year. The company's heydays of bottle making are over. It's blaming the closure on a fall in home demand for glass packaging, increased overseas competition, and the emergence of excess glass production capacity in the UK and Europe. A spokesman for the company said they would be considering relocating a number of employees, as well as offering early retirement to those eligible. What a horrible Christmas present for those loyal workers, many of whom have given a lifetime to the company. Tuesday, the 18th of May, marked a momentous chapter in the life of Willowbrook Hospice, formerly St Helens and Knowsley Hospice. Princess Alexandra is here to officially open the Specialist Palliative Care Unit. Fundraising began at the beginning of this decade, with a plethora of events to raise the estimated £1.8 million it would take to realise the dream. In late 1992, St Helens Council generously donated a piece of land to the St Helens and Knowsley registered charity as fundraising spread through the borough.
It's arranged by all the churches so that we can walk together as a united witness and support the hospice. Probably in the region between 20 to 25 churches in total. That's what there was last year, so I hope that's the same this year.
How much did we raise last year?
Over £10,000.
And we're hoping to go
I hope we get well over that this time.
In February 1995, the amount of money raised reached £1 million. To mark this milestone, a huge celebration took place in Church Square. Twin sisters, 11-year-olds Joanne and Louise Watkinson, presented the mayors of St Helens and Knowsley with a £1 to take the fund past the first £1 million and a £1 to start the next million. A year later, in February 1996, the Right Honourable the Earl of Derby turned the first sod to mark the start of construction work on the site. The building took just over a year to complete. Many of the people who started fundraising back in 1992 are present to see the opening ceremony and enjoy this very special day. The Princess was introduced to civic dignitaries from Knowsley and St Helens. The Lord Lieutenant of Merseyside and the High Sheriff were also in attendance. After the introductions, Her Royal Highness was presented with a posy of flowers by Laura Macmillan, one of the hospice fundraising team. During the visit, the Princess was escorted on a tour of the building by Lady Kirsty Pilkington, the chair of the trustees, and Mrs. Julie Gorry, director of hospice services. Princess Alexandra met patients and some of the staff and volunteers who take such good care of them. Her Royal Highness stepped outside to the cheering crowds that awaited her. After unveiling the plaque and signing the visitors' book, the Princess went on an unscheduled walkabout, chatting to volunteers and guests. The annual running costs, in the region of £750,000, are largely met by the generosity of local people.
We're going to be better beautiful best football. We're not creative enough, we're not positive enough. We'll go on getting bad results, getting bad results, getting bad results.
Rugby League sainthood has been bestowed upon generations of fortunate players, staff and fans. St Helens Rugby Football Club was there at the beginning as founder members in the historic split from traditional rugby union in 1895. But the road to glory, well worn since the 1950s, was originally a track of turmoil. Saints teams in the early years had to defend against the opposition on the field and withstand financial pressure off it. Having graduated to top-class status during the first 100 years of rugby league football, Saints have entered the new dawn of Super League as market leaders.
The Saints are gonna throw it away, gonna blow it away, but I know they can play. 'Cause I remember Herbert's with a crowd, and he will have the cheering. 20 years of hurt, challenge cup still gleaming. So many jokes, so many sneers. The Pies are gonna win again, but they're out. It's the Bulls, and we have got our new long joints. Tommy Martin and Hunt, Bobby Gould in the Bay, and Carolini, Leonard's with the crowd, and he will have
The success of the club began to wane as off-the-field disenchantment set in. Saints chief executive David Howes moved on 2 years before his contract was to expire, soon to be followed by Sean McRae, Saints coach. Ellery Hanley took over the coaching reins. Changes to the squad, team building, motivational exercises and hard work soon brought about a winning side. In July this year, Ellery Hanley was suspended. The usual fans chanting "Come on you Saints" at the game against Hull Sharks changed to "Sack the board" in support of the coach they all love. After a sit-in protest by 2,000 fans, a lengthy petition to the board and a breakaway supporters club, Ellery, to the delight of his thousands of supporters, was back in charge. The life and legends of the club have been captured in the Saints official video, The Saints Go Marching On. what about the next millennium? It looks like the promise of a town centre cinema will finally be fulfilled. Work is already underway at the site of the one-time Centre of Early Learning, the Windle Pilkington School, to develop a 10-screen cinema, a Yates wine lodge and a Chicago rock cafe. The town's last surviving cinema, the Savoy, will reopen as a nightclub. The previous site, earmarked as a leisure development, will become non-food retail outlets. The Plaza nightclub, which became Loewy's, has reverted once again to the Plaza. A £14 million museum and heritage-based visitor centre, one of the largest projects for the millennium in the region, will be open from Easter 2000. The World of Glass will celebrate St Helens glass heritage, which goes back 2 centuries, and will bring life to the story of glass and manufacture. Matalan will open their new store on the banks of the Hotties, and Morrison's store redevelopment will stretch from Knowsley Road to Bush's Builders Merchants off Eccleston Street. It's probable, with the new proposed bill to be debated in the next session of Parliament, that councils will levy a toll against cars coming into town centres. If this happens, the Stackis Hotel will get their wish to have the multi-storey car park on Chalon Way demolished. It's also likely the town's other multi-storey car parks will give way to retail businesses. The bowling alley is to close and will become a retail outlet, and the chaos at Victoria Square will end early in the new year to give it a new look similar to 100 years ago. We can't turn the clock back, but we can always peep in the past.